The spacecraft Baidu-7 moved slowly over the gray surface of the moon. Inside, Commander Park Do-hyun looked through the small window at the endless craters below. He had dreamed of this moment since he was a child. Now, at 42 years old, he was finally here. "Altitude stable," said Kim Yuna from the pilot's seat. She was the youngest member of the crew at 31, but her hands were steady and her voice was calm. Beginning descent to Shackleton Crater. In the back of the spacecraft, Lee Tai-woo checked his equipment one more time. He was the mission specialist, responsible for all the scientific work. His job was to map the lunar surface and find the best location for Korea's first permanent moon base. "Mission Control, this is Baidu-7, Do-hyun said into his radio. "We are beginning final approach. Everything looks good." The voice of Director Choi Hana came through the speakers. She was back on Earth, in the control room in Daejeon. "Copy that, Baidu-7. You are go for landing. Make us proud." The landing was smooth. Yuna brought the spacecraft down gently onto the gray dust. For a moment, all three astronauts sat in silence. They were on the moon. They had actually made it. "Let's get to work," Do-hyun said finally. Over the next several hours, they set up their equipment outside. Tai-woo placed seismic sensors in the ground. These devices would send sound waves deep into the moon and measure what came back. It was like taking an X-ray of the ground below. The first readings were normal. Rock, more rock. Ancient stone that had been there for billions of years. Tai-woo recorded everything carefully. Then something strange appeared on his screen. "Commander," he said slowly, "you need to see this." Do-hyun walked over in his heavy spacesuit. Moving on the moon was difficult. The gravity was weak, and every step felt strange. "What is it?" he asked. Tai-woo pointed at his screen. "There's something under us. About 40 meters down. The seismic waves are bouncing off something. Wrong." "Wrong how?" "It's hollow. And the shape is too perfect. Too geometric. Nature doesn't make shapes like this." Do-hyun felt his heart beat faster. "Are you sure?" "I've run the scan 3 times. There's definitely something down there. Something big." They reported their findings to Mission Control. Director Choi Hana listened carefully. When they finished, there was a long silence. "Do not discuss this on open channels," she said finally. "I'm switching you to a secure frequency. Begin excavation immediately." It took them 2 days to dig down to the object. They used small explosives and hand tools. The work was slow and exhausting. But with each meter they dug, Tai-woo's readings became clearer. Whatever was down there, it was massive. On the morning of the 3rd day, Yuna's shovel hit something solid. "Contact," she said quietly. They cleared away more dust and rock. Slowly, a surface appeared. It was black. Not gray like the lunar rock, but pure black. Like looking into empty space. "What is it?" Yuna whispered. Do-hyun knelt down and touched the surface with his gloved hand. The moment he made contact, something incredible happened. Light spread across the black surface. Symbols appeared, glowing with soft blue light. They formed patterns that looked like writing, but not any writing from Earth. The symbols moved and shifted, responding to his touch. "Are you seeing this?" Tai-woo asked, his voice shaking. "Mission Control," Do-hyun said into his radio. "We have found something. It's not natural. It's not from Earth. It's a ship. We found an alien ship." They worked through the night to uncover more of the vessel. It was enormous. At least 200 meters long, shaped like a smooth teardrop. The black hull had no visible doors, no windows, no seams. It looked like it had been carved from a single piece of some unknown material. And it was old. Tai-woo ran tests on the rock around it. The results made no sense. The ship had been buried there for over 3 billion years. That was before any life existed on Earth, before there were even fish in the ocean. Someone buried this here, Yuna said. They put it here on purpose. But why? Taiwu asked. Why hide a ship on Earth's moon? Do-hyun stared at the glowing symbols. They were still moving, still responding to their presence. After billions of years of silence, the ship had woken up. Maybe they wanted us to find it, he said. Maybe this was always meant for us. On Earth, Director Choi Hana watched the video feed from the moon. Her hands were trembling. In 30 years of working in aerospace, she had never seen anything like this. Nobody had. This was the moment everything changed. She picked up her phone and called the president. Sir, she said, we need to talk. We found something on the moon, and I don't think we're alone in the universe anymore. Back on the lunar surface, the 3 astronauts stood before the alien ship. The symbols continued to glow. The ship seemed to be waiting for them to take the next step. Do-hyun reached out and touched the hull again. The symbols shifted and rearranged themselves. Then, slowly, silently, a doorway appeared in the smooth black surface. The ship was inviting them inside. Well, Yuna said, I didn't sign up for this, but I'm not going to say no. Do-hyun looked at his crew. They had come to the moon to build a base. Instead, they had found something that would change human history forever. Let's go, he said. Let's see what they left for us. Together, the 3 astronauts stepped into the darkness of the alien ship. Above them, the Earth hung in the black sky, blue and beautiful and completely unaware of what was about to come. The inside of the ship was nothing like they expected. There were no control panels, no seats, no equipment of any kind. Just vast empty chambers that stretched into darkness. Their flashlights seemed too weak here, as if the darkness was eating the light. This doesn't make sense, Taiwu said. His voice echoed strangely. Where is everything? Where are the aliens? Maybe they took everything with them, Yuna suggested. Do-hyun walked deeper into the ship. The floor was smooth under his boots. He noticed something strange. The symbols on the walls were following him. Wherever he moved, they appeared beside him, glowing softly in the darkness. I think the ship is watching us, he said. They explored for hours, but found nothing except empty rooms. The ship was enormous inside, much bigger than it appeared from outside. The geometry was wrong somehow. Rooms connected in ways that didn't make sense. Sometimes they would walk straight and end up back where they started. This place hurts my brain, Yuna complained. On the second day of exploration, Taiwu found something in the deepest chamber. It was a sphere, about the size of a basketball, floating in the center of the room. It was made of crystal, and inside it, lights moved like tiny stars. Don't touch it, Do-hyun warned. But they didn't need to touch it. The sphere sensed them. It began to glow brighter, and suddenly images flooded their minds. Yuna fell to her knees. Taiwu grabbed his head in pain. Do-hyun stood frozen as visions poured into his brain like water into a cup. He saw cities. Beautiful cities that stretched across entire planets. He saw beings, tall and elegant, with long limbs and eyes that held ancient wisdom. They were the builders of this ship. They had been great once. They had ruled dozens of star systems. Then he saw something else. Something in the darkness between galaxies. A shape that was not a shape. A presence that consumed light and life and thought. It had no name. It had existed since before the stars were born. The elegant beings had called it many things. The end, the silence, the hollow, and it had hunted them. Planet by planet, system by system, it had followed them across the universe. No weapon could hurt it. No ship could escape it. It didn't want their resources or their technology. It wanted something else. Something worse. It fed on consciousness, on intelligence, on the very thing that made life meaningful. The smarter the species, the brighter they burned in the hollow's perception, and the faster it came for them. The vision showed the final days of the elegant beings. They knew they couldn't win, so they chose to leave warnings. They sent ships to young worlds, worlds where life might one day develop. They buried their messages and their knowledge, hoping that someday someone would find them and learn from their failure. The sphere went dark. Da-Hyun gasped for air. Beside him, Yuna was crying silently. Taiwu was staring at nothing. "They're all dead," Taiwu whispered. "All of them. An entire civilization. Gone. And whatever killed them is still out there," Yuna added. Da-Hyun forced himself to stand. His legs felt weak, but his mind was racing. "We need to translate the rest of their records. There has to be more information, something that can help us." A week later, a new crew member arrived on the moon. Her name was Yoonji Woo, and she was a xenolinguist. That meant she studied languages, including languages that might not be from Earth. She had spent her whole career preparing for a moment like this, even though she never believed it would actually come. "Show me everything," she said when she arrived. For days, Ji-Woo worked with the crystal sphere. She learned to communicate with it, to ask it questions. The symbols on the walls began to make sense to her. They weren't just decoration. They were the aliens' final message. "I've translated the first section," she announced one morning. Her face was pale. "It's a warning. It says, we failed. You found this. That means you survived. Learn from our arrogance." "Arrogance?" Do-Yoon repeated. "They thought they were too advanced to be destroyed," Ji-Woo explained. "They believed their technology would save them. They were wrong." She continued translating over the following weeks. The records told a terrible story. The elegant beings had been the most advanced civilization in their part of the universe. They had solved problems that humans couldn't even imagine. They thought nothing could threaten them. Then the hollow came. It moved slowly through the void, drawn to the light of conscious minds. The brighter the light, the faster it moved. And the elegant beings had been very, very bright. Meanwhile, on Earth, something was happening. Astronomer Baek Junho was working late at the National Observatory. He was checking data from deep space sensors when he noticed something strange. A signal from the edge of the solar system. It wasn't natural. It wasn't random. It was moving. Moving toward Earth. He ran his calculations again. Then a third time. His hands were shaking when he picked up the phone. "Get me the aerospace director," he said. "We have a problem." On the moon, Ji-Woo made another discovery. Hidden in the alien records was a small piece of hope. The elegant beings had not been the only ones to face the hollow. Another species, younger and more primitive, had encountered it too. And they had survived. They fought back. Ji-Woo explained excitedly. They didn't run. They didn't hide. They attacked it with everything they had. Crude weapons, simple ships. And they heard it, actually heard it. How is that possible? Taiwu asked. The elegant beings didn't understand. They called it a fluke. But look at this. She pointed to a section of symbols. The hollow had never been attacked before. It didn't know how to respond to aggression. It expected fear. It expected surrender. When it got neither, it retreated. Do-Yoon felt something stir in his chest. It took him a moment to recognize it. It was hope. So it can be hurt, he said slowly. It can be driven away. Maybe, Ji-Woo said. But the elegant beings never tried. They thought fighting was beneath them. They thought they could outsmart it instead. And they all died. Yes, every single one. Do-Yoon looked at his crew. Then he looked at the crystal sphere, floating silently in the darkness. 3 billion years. That's how long this message had waited. waited for someone to find it, someone who might actually listen. "Get me a line to Earth," he said. "It's time to tell everyone what we found." The message was about to reach humanity. And humanity was about to learn that they were not alone in the universe. But more importantly, they were about to learn that something terrible was coming. Something that had destroyed civilizations far greater than their own. And it was already on its way. The news broke across every screen on Earth. Governments tried to control the story, but it was impossible. Within hours, everyone knew. There was alien life in the universe. And something was coming to destroy them. Panic spread like fire. Stock markets crashed. Riots broke out in major cities. Religious leaders called for calm, while others called for prayer. Some people believed it was all a lie. Others believed it was the end of the world. In the United Nations building, world leaders gathered for an emergency meeting. They argued for days. Some wanted to hide. Some wanted to negotiate. Some wanted to surrender before the fight even started. Director Choi Hana watched the chaos from her seat. She had been given a voice at this meeting because of her role in the discovery. But so far, no one had asked her opinion. Finally, she stood up. "May I speak?" she asked. The room went quiet. Every eye turned to her. "I have been studying the alien records for weeks now," she said. "Dr. Yoon Ji-woo has translated most of their history. Do you know what it tells us? It tells us that hiding doesn't work. Running doesn't work. Negotiation doesn't work. The Hollow doesn't want our resources or our planet. It wants to consume our minds, our consciousness. There is nothing we can offer it except ourselves." A delegate from Russia spoke up. "Then what do you suggest?" "We cannot fight something that destroyed a civilization far more advanced than ours." "Actually," Hana said, "that's exactly what I suggest." She explained what Jiwoo had discovered. The primitive species that had fought back. The Hollow's confusion when faced with aggression instead of fear. "The elegant beings made a mistake," she said. "They assumed their intelligence was their greatest weapon. But intelligence means nothing if you're too afraid to use it." They calculated. They planned. They debated. And while they did all that, the Hollow kept coming. "What are you saying?" the American delegate asked. "I'm saying we shouldn't think like them. We should fight like humans. Messy, loud, stubborn. We should throw everything we have at this thing and refuse to stop." The room erupted in argument again. But something had changed. A seed had been planted. On the moon, Commander Park Do-yoon requested permission to address the UN Council directly. They agreed. His face appeared on screens around the world. "I know you're afraid," he said. "I'm afraid too. 3 weeks ago, I touched something that had been sleeping for 3 billion years. I saw visions of an entire civilization dying. I felt their fear, their regret, their despair. And do you know what I learned?" He paused. "I learned that fear is the enemy. Not the Hollow. Fear. The elegant beings were brilliant. They could do things we can't even dream of. But they let fear guide them. They ran. They hid. They went silent. And one by one, the Hollow found them anyway." His voice grew stronger. "We have 14 months before that thing reaches Earth. 14 months to decide what kind of species we are. Are we going to hide in the dark like scared children? Or are we going to light every fire we have and dare that thing to come closer?" He leaned forward. "I say we fight. Not because we know we can win, but because giving up isn't in our nature. Humans have survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters that should have ended us 100 times over. We survived because we refused to quit. That's who we are. That's what makes us human." The speech was broadcast everywhere. People watched in their homes, in bars, in refugee camps. Some cried. Some cheered, but almost everyone felt something change inside them. The United Nations voted the next day. The result was not unanimous, but it was clear. Humanity would not hide. Humanity would not surrender. Humanity would fight. Director Choi Hana was placed in charge of the new Global Defense Initiative. She had 14 months to prepare the entire world for war against something beyond comprehension. It seemed impossible. But impossible was a word humans used a lot, and they had a habit of proving it wrong. Work began immediately. Scientists from every nation shared their research. Old rivals became partners overnight. Factories that had made cars now made spacecraft. Universities that had studied physics now studied weapons. On the moon, Dr. Yoon Ji-woo continued to work with the alien ship. Every day, she learned something new. Most of the technology was far beyond human understanding, but some things could be adapted. I found something interesting, she told the team one evening. A frequency. The elegant beings recorded one frequency that seemed to bother the hollow. It didn't hurt it exactly, but it made it uncomfortable. Like a bright light in your eyes. Can we recreate it? Do-hyun asked. Maybe. The equipment is simple enough. The hard part is generating enough power. She sent her findings to Earth. Within days, physicist Han Se-woo was leading a team to build electromagnetic disruptors based on the alien data. He was young, only 35, but he had a reputation for solving impossible problems. This frequency is strange, he said, studying the data. It's almost like music, like a sound that doesn't belong in the universe. Can you make it louder? Han asked. Se-woo smiled. I can make it deafening. Meanwhile, pilot Kim Yuna returned to Earth to train a new generation of pilots. They would fly the interceptors being built in factories around the world. These ships were not elegant. They were not beautiful. They were ugly, loud, and held together with welding and hope. They looked terrible, one of the young pilots said. Good, Yuna replied. The elegant beings built perfect ships, smooth, efficient, silent, and they all died. We're building something different. We're building ships that will make that thing in space look at us and wonder what the hell we're doing. She taught them to fly aggressively, to take risks, to never, ever give up. The hollow expects surrender, she told them. It expects fear. Every time you attack, you're telling it that humans don't know how to quit. And that's going to confuse it more than any weapon we build. The months passed quickly. Around the world, preparations continued. Ships were built. Weapons were tested. Billions of people trained in emergency procedures. But there was something else happening too. Something the planners hadn't expected. People started talking. Not about the end of the world, but about what they wanted to save. They shared stories, memories, dreams. They reached out to family members they hadn't spoken to in years. They forgave old enemies and made new friends. Facing death together had reminded them what life was worth. Director Choi Hana noticed this change during a visit to a factory. Workers who should have been exhausted were singing as they worked. Children drew pictures of spaceships fighting monsters. Old people who had seen wars and disasters said this felt different. This felt like the whole world was finally on the same team. Maybe that's what we needed, she said to herself. Maybe we needed something impossible to remind us what we're capable of. On the moon, Commander Park Do-hyun stood before the alien ship one last time. In 2 days, he would return to Earth to lead the defense fleet. He might never see this place again. Thank you, he said to the empty chamber. I don't know if you can hear me. I don't know if any part of you still exists somewhere. But thank you for the warning. We won't waste it. The symbols on the walls glowed softly. For a moment, Do-hyun could almost believe they were saying goodbye. Then he turned and walked away. There was a battle to prepare for, and humanity was ready to show the universe what it was made of. The day came sooner than anyone expected. Astronomer Baek Junho was the first to see it clearly. The hollow had entered the inner solar system. It passed Jupiter without slowing. It passed Mars like it wasn't even there. It was heading straight for Earth. "It's bigger than the records showed," he reported, his voice barely steady. "Much bigger. I'm reading a diameter of over 800 kilometers. 800 kilometers of darkness. 800 kilometers of something that consumed entire civilizations. It moved through space like a wound in reality, swallowing the light around it. How long until it reaches us?" Director Choi Hana asked. 72 hours. Humanity had prepared for 14 months. Now they had 3 days. The Global Defense Initiative activated immediately. Every ship that could fly was launched. Every weapon that could fire was powered up. Every broadcast station on Earth was turned to maximum power. Because that was the plan. Not to hide. Not to go quiet. But to be so loud that the hollow couldn't ignore them. Commander Park Do-hyun stood on the bridge of the flagship, a massive vessel named Baekdu, after his first spacecraft. Around him, a fleet of 3,000 ships waited. They came from every nation on Earth: Korean, American, Russian, Chinese, Indian, European. For the first time in history, humans fought under one flag. "All ships, this is Commander Park," he said into his radio. "You know what we're facing. You know the odds. The elegant beings ran from this thing for 1,000 years. They built perfect ships and flawless weapons and still lost everything." He paused. "We're not going to do it their way. We're going to do it the human way. Messy, stupid, loud. We're going to throw ourselves at that thing until it understands that killing us isn't worth the trouble." Any questions? Silence. Then, one by one, confirmations came in. 3,000 voices saying they were ready. Good. Let's make some noise. The fleet moved forward. At the same time, on Earth, something else was happening. Physicist Han Se-woo had finished his project. Thousands of electromagnetic disruptors were positioned around the planet. But that wasn't his real weapon. His real weapon was humanity itself. "The hollow feeds on consciousness," he explained to Director Hana. "The brighter the mind, the more it's drawn." The elegant beings tried to dim themselves. They meditated. They suppressed their thoughts. They became quieter and quieter until there was nothing left. And your plan? The opposite. We become louder. We link every willing human mind together through a neural broadcast network. 8 billion people, all thinking at once, all feeling at once. We become so bright that the hollow can't process us. Hana stared at him. "You want to overwhelm it. Like a computer with too much data." Exactly. The elegant beings thought intelligence was the problem. But maybe intelligence is the solution. Maybe the answer isn't less consciousness, but more. So much more that even something as ancient as the hollow can't handle it. It was a crazy plan. But crazy was all they had left. In space, the battle began. The hollow didn't attack like a normal enemy. It didn't fire weapons or send fighters. It simply moved forward, and everything in its path began to die. Ships that got too close stopped responding. Pilots went silent. Vessels drifted empty, their crews gone. But humans kept coming. Pilot Kim Yuna led the first attack wave. Her squadron dove straight at the darkness, firing everything they had. Nuclear missiles exploded against the hollow's surface. Electromagnetic pulses screamed at the frequency Jiwoo had discovered. Most of the attacks did nothing. But some made the darkness ripple. Some made it hesitate. It felt that. Yuna shouted. "Everyone, focus fire on the distortion points. Hit it where it hurts. The battle raged for hours. Ships fell by the hundreds. But for every ship that died, 2 more took its place. Humans came from every direction, attacking without pause, without fear. The Hollow had never experienced anything like this. In 3 billion years of hunting, nothing had approached it willingly. Nothing had attacked it with such fury. It was like being swarmed by insects, each one insignificant but together forming something overwhelming. On Earth, Hansuo activated the neural broadcast. It started small. Volunteers in research facilities, connected through specially designed headsets. Then it spread. Hospitals, schools, homes. Anyone who wanted to participate could join. The network grew. 100 people. 1,000. 1,000,000. 10 million. And they didn't just think. They felt. They shared their memories, their hopes, their loves. The first time they held their children. The moment they fell in love. The taste of their grandmother's cooking. The sound of rain on a roof. 8 billion humans connected in one massive chorus of consciousness. The Hollow felt it. In 3 billion years, it had consumed countless minds. But never all at once. Never this many. Never this loud. It recoiled. It's working. Beat Junho shouted from his observatory. The readings are changing. It's in pain. Or something like pain. In space, Commander Park Do-hyun saw the darkness begin to pull back. The Hollow was retreating. Not because of the weapons. Not because of the ships. But because humanity was simply too much to swallow. All ships, keep firing. He ordered. Don't let up. Show it what we're made of. The battle reached its peak. Human ships surrounded the Hollow, hammering it from every angle. On Earth, the neural broadcast grew even stronger. People who had never met shared their souls with each other. Enemies became friends. Strangers became family. And the Hollow, ancient and terrible and hungrier than anything in the universe, made a sound. Not a physical sound, but something that every conscious mind felt. It was confusion. It was frustration. It was something almost like fear. Then, slowly, it turned away. It moved backward, away from Earth, away from the screaming chorus of human minds. It retreated past Mars, past Jupiter, back toward the cold darkness at the edge of the solar system. It didn't die. Nothing humans had could kill it, but it left. On the bridge of the Baekdu, Commander Park Do-hyun fell into his chair. Around him, exhausted crew members stared at their screens in disbelief. Did we win? Someone asked. Do-hyun watched the Hollow shrink into the distance. His hands were shaking. His eyes were wet. I don't know if we won, he said slowly. But we didn't lose. And for today, that's enough. On Earth, people began to disconnect from the neural broadcast. The shared consciousness faded, but something remained. A feeling of connection. A memory of what it felt like to be truly together. Director Choi Hana stepped outside and looked up at the sky. Somewhere up there, thousands of ships were beginning the long journey home. Many would never return. The cost had been enormous, but humanity had stood its ground, and the universe had noticed. She smiled, even as tears ran down her face. We're still here, she whispered. We're still here. 5 years passed. The world was different now, not just because of the battle, but because of what came after. Humans had seen what they could do when they worked together. They had felt what it was like to be connected, and they didn't want to go back to the old ways. Nations still existed, but borders meant less than before. Old conflicts seemed small compared to what they had faced together. People built new things instead of fighting over old ones. And on the moon, the alien ship became something special. They called it the Memorial now. Every month, Visitors came from Earth to see it. Students, scientists, families, all people who wanted to touch something ancient before they died. Children who wanted to understand where they fit in the universe. Dr. Yoonji Woo stayed on the moon to study the ship. In 5 years, she had translated nearly everything in its records. The elegant beings had left behind more than just warnings. They had left their history, their art, their music, their dreams. A civilization that had existed for millions of years was not truly gone as long as someone remembered them. They weren't that different from us, she told a group of visiting students one afternoon. They loved. They created. They hoped. They made mistakes. The only difference is that they gave up at the end. And we didn't. Commander Park Do-hyun, now 67 years old, still visited the ship sometimes. He had retired from active service but couldn't stay away. The memorial felt like home to him, like a place where he was supposed to be. Today was a special day. They were adding something to the ship's chamber. A new message placed beside the ancient warnings. The ceremony was small. Just the original crew and a few others. Pilot Kim Yuna came, her hair now gray but her eyes still sharp. Lee Tai-woo brought his grandchildren. Director Choi Hana, thinner and slower but still leading with quiet strength. Han Se-woo, the physicist whose crazy plan had saved them all. Baek Junho, who had first spotted the hollow approaching. They gathered in the deepest chamber, where the crystal sphere still floated. It had gone dark after the battle, its purpose fulfilled. But it remained there, a reminder of the beings who had made it. Do-hyun stepped forward. In his hands, he held a metal plate. Engraved on it were words in every human language, along with the symbol system of the elegant beings. 3 billion years ago, he said, someone made a choice. They knew they were dying. They knew there was nothing they could do to save themselves. But instead of giving up completely, they left a message. They hoped that someday, someone would find it and do better than they did. He looked at the dark sphere. We found it. And I'd like to think we did okay. He turned to face the others. But our job isn't done. Someday, maybe tomorrow, maybe in 1,000,000 years, another species will find this place. They'll see the alien warnings, and they'll see what we added. And I want them to know that they're not alone. I want them to know that someone else stood where they're standing and felt scared and small and hopeless. And I want them to know that we fought anyway. He placed the metal plate on the wall beside the ancient symbols. It fit perfectly, like it had always belonged there. The inscription read, "We were here. We were afraid. We fought anyway. So can you." Silence filled the chamber. Then, slowly, the crystal sphere began to glow. Everyone stepped back in surprise. The sphere hadn't shown any activity in 5 years. But now light swirled inside it, soft and gentle, like a candle being lit. Jiwoo moved closer. It's responding. It's acknowledging us. Images appeared in their minds. Not the terror of the hollow this time, but something else. They saw the elegant beings as they had been in their golden age. Building, creating, loving. They saw the hope that had existed before the darkness came. And they saw something new. A vision of the future, maybe. Or a wish. Ships spreading across the stars. Not just human ships, but others too. Species that hadn't been born yet. Civilizations that would rise long after humanity was gone. All of them carrying the same message forward. You are not alone. You can fight. There is hope. The vision faded. The sphere went dark again, this time permanently. Its last act had been to bless what humanity had added. Yuna wiped her eyes. I think they approved. I think they did too, Do-hyun said. They left the chamber together, walking slowly through the ancient corridors. Outside, the lunar landscape stretched toward the horizon, Earth hung in the black sky, beautiful and alive. A new shuttle was waiting to take them home. Young pilots saluted as they approached. A new generation, born after the battle, who had never known the fear of those days. "Do you think it will come back?" one of the young pilots asked. "The hollow?" Do-hyun looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the hollow was still drifting, wounded but not dead, waiting for the memory of pain to fade. "Maybe," he said. "Maybe someday it will try again. Will we be ready?" Do-hyun smiled. "I don't know, but I know we'll fight. That's what humans do. We fight for each other. We fight for what matters. We fight because giving up isn't in our nature." He climbed into the shuttle and took one last look at the memorial. The ship that had waited 3 billion years for humanity to find it. The warning that had saved them all. "Thank you," he whispered. "We'll keep your memory alive." The shuttle lifted off, carrying the old heroes back to Earth. Behind them, the alien ship sat silent in the lunar dust. Its message had been delivered. Its purpose had been fulfilled. But it would remain there forever, waiting for the next species that needed to hear its warning. And next to the ancient symbols of a dead civilization, a new message glowed in the soft light of distant stars. "We were here. We were afraid. We fought, anyway. So can you." Somewhere in the darkness between galaxies, something ancient stirred. The hollow remembered the bright, burning minds that had driven it back. The chaos, the defiance, the refusal to surrender. It would not return to that place. Not for a long, long time. But it would remember. And so would humanity. The story was not over. Stories never really end. They pass from one generation to the next, changing and growing with each telling. But this chapter was complete. Humanity had faced the darkness and survived. Not because they were the strongest or the smartest, but because they were stubborn enough to fight and caring enough to fight together. That was the human way. That was what made them special. And that was the inheritance they would pass on to every species that came after them. Hope, courage, the simple truth that giving up is never the only option. The moon wasn't empty. It held a message from the past. And now it held a message for the future. Both said the same thing in the end. Don't be afraid. You are not alone. You can do this. And that was enough. That was everything. The end.